Listen closely, my friends. The life you live every day is being decided by the mind you train every morning. Before you speak to anyone, before you touch your phone, before the world tells you what to worry about, you have a few silent moments where you can either take control of your mind or surrender it. Most people lose that moment without even realizing it. They wake up and immediately consume the world, then spend the rest of the day wondering why they feel distracted, anxious, unmotivated, and mentally exhausted. Your morning is more than the beginning of another day. It is the first battle for your attention, your identity, and your future. The first thoughts you repeat become the mental direction of your day. The emotions you feed become easier to return to. The distractions you allow become habits, and the habits you repeat long enough eventually become the architecture of your life. You are not simply waking up every morning, you are training your brain to become something. Think about what happens when you wake up and immediately reach for your phone. Before your own thoughts have even formed, thousands of other voices enter your mind. Someone else's success makes you feel behind. Someone else's opinion makes you angry. Someone else's lifestyle makes your life feel smaller. A notification interrupts your attention. A headline creates fear. A message changes your mood. And suddenly, before your feet have even touched the floor, you are reacting instead of leading. The Stoics understood that the greatest battle is rarely the one happening outside you. It is the battle over what you allow to control you. Marcus Aurelius lived through war, betrayal, political pressure, loss, and uncertainty, yet he repeatedly returned to his own mind. Epictetus taught that some things belong to our control, and others do not. Their message was simple but brutal. You may not control what the day brings, but you can train the mind that meets it. Imagine two people waking up at the same hour. One immediately enters the noise of the world, notifications, comparison, entertainment, excuses, and other people's priorities. The other spends the first moments of the day becoming still, remembering what matters, choosing what deserves attention, and preparing for difficulty. They have the same 24 hours, but they are not entering the day with the same mind. Do that for one day, and the difference is small. Do it for 5 years, and you may create two completely different lives. This is what rewiring your mind really means. It does not mean pretending life is easy. It does not mean repeating empty affirmations while avoiding reality. It means training your thoughts until discipline becomes more natural than distraction, clarity becomes stronger than chaos, and action becomes stronger than excuses. Just as a river slowly cuts through stone by moving in the same direction again and again, your repeated thoughts and actions slowly carve pathways inside your mind. And this is where the morning becomes powerful. Every morning gives you a decision. Will you let your environment program you, or will you program yourself? Will you begin the day consuming or creating, reacting or deciding, chasing everything or focusing on what actually matters? The answer may seem small in the moment, but your future is built from moments exactly like these. Because success is rarely destroyed by one dramatic failure. More often, it is quietly traded away through ordinary mornings. One more hour of distraction, one more excuse, one more day without discipline, one more morning spent living according to everyone else's priorities. And eventually, the person you could have become is buried beneath the habits you repeated. But the opposite is also true. One disciplined morning can become another. One controlled thought can become a pattern. One powerful decision can become an identity. You do not need to transform your entire life tomorrow morning. You need to win the first battle, then win it again the next day, and again. In this video, you will discover 7 powerful Stoic morning rules that can help you deliberately rewire your mind for success. These are not ordinary productivity tricks. They are mental disciplines designed to change how you think, what you focus on, how you handle pressure, and how you move through the world. Because the goal is not simply to create a productive morning. The goal is to create a mind that remains powerful when the morning is over. So before the world gets your attention tomorrow, take it back. Because if you control the first thoughts of your day, you begin controlling the direction of your life. Rule 1. Win the first battle. Do not give your mind away. The first battle of your day begins before you leave your bed. It begins the moment your eyes open and your mind becomes available to the world. Most people immediately surrender that moment. They reach for their phone, check messages, consume notifications, open social media, and allow hundreds of other people's priorities to enter their consciousness before they have even remembered their own. The tragedy is not that they use their phone in the morning. The tragedy is that they give away their mind before deciding what they want their mind to become. Imagine waking up every morning and opening the front door of your house to a crowd of strangers. You let every person walk inside, speak loudly, rearrange your furniture, tell you what to fear, tell you what to desire, and decide where you should go. Then, after everyone has left, you look around at the chaos and wonder why your home no longer feels like yours. That is exactly what happens inside the mind when you begin every morning by consuming instead of choosing. Your attention is your mental home. Guard it. Marcus Aurelius understood the importance of beginning the day deliberately. In meditations, he repeatedly reminded himself that he would encounter difficult people, irritating situations, and circumstances beyond his control. He did not wait until those things happened to decide how he would respond. He prepared his mind beforehand. That is a powerful Stoic principle. Do not wait for the world to decide your state of mind. Decide your principles before the world tests them. This is why the first minutes of your morning have extraordinary psychological value. Your mind has not yet been pulled in 10 different directions. You have not yet absorbed everyone else's problems. You have not yet compared your life with someone else's highlight reel. You have a brief window where your attention is still yours. Protect that window. Sit in silence. Breathe. Think. Remember what matters. Ask yourself what is actually within your control today. Then choose the one thing that deserves your best energy. The goal is not to create some perfect, peaceful morning where nothing goes wrong. Life does not work that way. The goal is to build an internal position from which you can face whatever happens. A soldier does not prepare for battle by hoping the enemy will disappear. He prepares so that when the battle arrives, his training speaks louder than his fear. Your morning is your training ground. You are teaching your mind how you intend to behave when pressure arrives later. Think about an athlete before a championship. They do not walk into the arena and ask the crowd what they should focus on. They already know. Their attention has been trained. Their movements have been rehearsed. Their objective is clear. Yet most people begin their day like an untrained athlete entering the biggest competition of their life and asking the crowd, "What should I do today?" The crowd answers with notifications, trends, opinions, advertisements, and distractions, and they obey. Your phone is not inherently the enemy. Technology can be useful. Information can be valuable. Connection can matter. The danger begins when something you own starts owning your attention. If you cannot delay checking your phone for 30 minutes, you should ask yourself an uncomfortable question. Who is really in control here? A powerful mind is not one that never uses technology. It is one that can use technology without becoming psychologically dependent on it. And there is a deeper reason this matters. Every time you choose an impulse over a deliberate decision, you strengthen that pattern. Every morning you immediately reach for stimulation. You teach your brain that silence must be escaped. Every time you choose distraction before intention, you reinforce distraction. But every morning you pause before reacting, you strengthen the opposite pathway. You teach yourself, I do not have to obey the first impulse that enters my mind. That single realization can change more than your mornings, because eventually the habit you practice at 7 a.m. begins appearing at 2 p.m. You become less reactive in conversations, less controlled by notifications, less desperate for immediate pleasure, less vulnerable to other people's moods, more capable of sitting with discomfort, more capable of finishing what you started. The morning is not isolated from the rest of your life. It is rehearsal for the rest of your life. So tomorrow morning, don't make your first question, what happened while I was asleep? Make your first question, who do I need to be today? Before you open the digital door, open the door inward. Ask yourself, what is within my control? What deserves my attention? What kind of person do I want my actions to prove me to be? And what is the one thing I must not allow to steal my mind today? Then protect the answer, because the world will always be waiting to tell you what matters. Your job is to decide first. Win the first battle. Do not give your mind away. Rule 2. Control your first thought. The first thought of your morning may look insignificant, but repeated thoughts become mental pathways, and mental pathways eventually become the roads your life travels. Most people wake up and allow the mind to immediately replay yesterday's problems, predict tomorrow's disasters, remember old failures, or compare their life with someone else's. They haven't even stood up, yet they are already carrying emotional weight. The day has not attacked them, but their own mind has already handed them a reason to feel defeated. Your mind in the morning is like freshly fallen snow. The first footsteps across it leave a direction, and every step that follows becomes easier to take in the same direction. If the first thoughts are fear, the mind learns fear. If the first thoughts are resentment, the mind begins searching for reasons to remain angry. If the first thoughts are comparison, everything you see becomes evidence that someone else is ahead. But if the first thought is deliberate, the entire psychological direction of the morning can change. This does not mean forcing yourself to think happy thoughts. Stoicism was never about lying to yourself. Marcus Aurelius did not wake up and pretend that the world contained no suffering. He prepared himself to face reality without becoming mentally defeated by it. There is a profound difference between saying, nothing bad will happen today, and saying, whatever happens today, I will meet it with reason, courage, and self-command. One is wishful thinking. The other is mental preparation. Imagine standing at the edge of an ocean before sunrise. You cannot command the waves. You cannot order the wind to become gentle. You cannot stop the tide from moving. But you can decide whether you will enter the water prepared or terrified. Your circumstances are the ocean. Your mind is the vessel. You do not become powerful by demanding that the ocean become calm. You become powerful by building a vessel capable of surviving rough water. This is why your first conscious thought should return you to what you control. You cannot control who will disappoint you today. You cannot control whether someone misunderstands you. You cannot control traffic, markets, other people's moods, unexpected problems, or the opinions people form about you. but you can control the quality of your response. You can control whether you become reactive or composed. You can control whether difficulty turns you bitter or makes you wiser. Epictetus built much of his philosophy around this distinction. The moment you separate what belongs to your control from what does not, something inside you becomes quieter. You stop trying to control the uncontrollable and start investing your energy where it can actually produce results. That is mental freedom. Not having a life without problems, but refusing to spend your life fighting battles you were never given the power to win. Think about a successful person preparing for a difficult day. They do not necessarily have fewer problems than everyone else. They may have more responsibility, more pressure, and more people depending on them. What separates them is often the quality of their internal preparation. A surgeon does not enter an operating room hoping their hands will somehow know what to do. They prepare before the critical moment. A pilot does not wait for turbulence before remembering how to fly. Preparation turns pressure into something you can navigate. Your morning should do the same for your mind. Before the first notification, tell yourself, "Today, I will not waste energy on what I cannot control." Before the first difficult conversation, remind yourself, "I control my words, not the reaction of the other person." Before the first setback, decide, "A problem is not permission to abandon my character." These are not motivational slogans. They are mental instructions, and the mind becomes stronger when it repeatedly receives clear instructions. There is another powerful layer to this rule. Do not let yesterday become the author of today. Yesterday may have contained failure. You may have embarrassed yourself. You may have lost an opportunity. Someone may have rejected you. You may have wasted hours doing something you regret. But the sunrise does not ask permission from yesterday before appearing. Every morning arrives without carrying the emotional debt you keep choosing to carry. The past can teach you, but it does not deserve to possess you. Imagine a prisoner who discovers that the cell door has been unlocked for years, but he continues sitting inside because he has become accustomed to the walls. That is what happens when you repeatedly wake up thinking about who you were instead of deciding who you will be. A mistake can become a lesson, or it can become an identity. The difference is whether you continue feeding it. So tomorrow morning, when your mind automatically produces its first negative thought, don't fight it with panic. Notice it, observe it, then choose another direction. Say to yourself, "That thought does not have to become my day." Take one breath. Create one moment of distance between the thought and the reaction. That small space is where self-mastery begins. Because you are not every thought that enters your mind. You are the one who decides which thoughts deserve to stay. And when you practice that decision every morning, something begins to change. You become less reactive. Your emotions stop feeling like commands. Your attention becomes harder to steal. Problems still appear, but they no longer immediately become catastrophes inside your head. The world may still be chaotic when you wake up. People may still disappoint you. Your responsibilities may still be waiting. But you will enter the day differently, not as someone waiting to see what happens to them, but as someone who has already decided how they intend to meet it. That is the second morning rule. Control the first thought, and you begin controlling the direction of the day. Rule 3. Remember your mortality. Make this morning count. One day you will wake up for the last time, and you will not know which morning it is. That thought sounds dark, but the Stoics used it for the opposite reason. They did not contemplate death because they hated life. They contemplated death because they refused to waste it. Every sunrise was evidence that another piece of their limited existence had been placed back into their hands, And if you truly understood that your time is finite, you would stop treating ordinary mornings as if they were guaranteed. Look at how easily people waste the beginning of a day. They spend 30 minutes scrolling, another hour consuming content they will not remember, and another part of the morning worrying about things that may never happen. Then they say they have no time to work on themselves. But time was never absent. Attention was misplaced. Seneca understood this deeply. Life can feel short, not because we are given too little time, but because so much of it disappears through unconscious living. Imagine being handed a box containing exactly $8,400 every morning with one condition. Whatever you do not use before midnight disappears forever. You would protect every dollar. You would think carefully before spending it. You would never casually throw thousands away on things that mean nothing to you. Yet every morning, life gives you approximately 86,400 seconds, and every second that passes is permanently gone. You cannot save today's time for tomorrow. You cannot buy yesterday back. Time is the currency you spend simply by existing. Marcus Aurelius repeatedly reminded himself that human life is brief. He knew that emperors, soldiers, philosophers, servants, and kings all eventually arrive at the same destination. Status cannot negotiate with time. Wealth cannot bribe it. Fame cannot delay it. And once you truly understand that, trivial concerns begin to lose some of their power. The insult you have been replaying for 3 days suddenly looks smaller. The opinion you were desperate to impress suddenly matters less. The opportunity you keep postponing suddenly becomes urgent. This is not about becoming reckless or living as though tomorrow does not matter. It is about understanding that tomorrow is not a contract. You can plan for it, prepare for it, and work toward it, but you do not own it. The only part of your life you can actually touch is the moment in front of you. That means this morning matters more than the imaginary perfect morning you keep promising yourself will come someday. Think about a candle burning in a dark room. Every second the flame is getting closer to its end, yet nobody stands there complaining that the candle is disappearing. Its purpose is not to avoid being consumed. Its purpose is to give light while it burns. Your life is similar. You are not here to preserve every second forever. You are here to use the seconds you have for something worthy. This changes the question you ask yourself in the morning. Instead of asking, "Do I feel motivated today?" ask, "If I knew this day was limited, and it is, what would deserve my energy?" Would you spend the first hour comparing yourself to strangers? Would you give your peace to an argument that will not matter in 5 years? Would you keep postponing the work that could change your future? Or would you finally give your attention to what you already know matters? The Stoics used mortality as a weapon against procrastination. Not a weapon against themselves, but against the illusion of endless time. Every time you say, "I'll start later," you are making an assumption about a future you cannot guarantee. Later may come, but so may another interruption, another problem, another year, another excuse, and eventually a person can spend an entire lifetime preparing to begin living. Look at the lives of people who understood urgency. Steve Jobs famously spoke about remembering that life is limited when making major decisions. He understood that knowing you will eventually die can strip away many of the artificial expectations that society places upon you. You begin asking better questions. Is this really my life? Am I building something meaningful? Am I spending my limited attention on things I actually value? You do not need to become famous to understand this principle. A parent holding their child, an entrepreneur building a company, an artist creating something meaningful, or an ordinary person finally deciding to change their life can all experience the same realization. This moment is not rehearsal, it is life. And perhaps the most painful thing about wasted time is that it rarely feels like waste while it is happening. A minute feels harmless, an hour feels recoverable, a day feels ordinary, but thousands of ordinary days eventually become your entire life. The mountain of regret is built from tiny stones that seemed insignificant when you picked them up. So tomorrow morning, before you allow yourself to disappear into distraction, pause for a moment. Look at the light entering the room. Feel the fact that you are here. You have been given another morning, not an infinite number of mornings, another one. Then ask yourself, what would I do today if I truly understood that my time was limited? Maybe the answer is to start the work. Maybe it is to call someone you love. Maybe it is to stop wasting your attention on someone who does not deserve it. Maybe it is to forgive yourself and move forward. Maybe it is simply to stop living half awake. Because one day, the morning will arrive and you will not be there to meet it. But today, you are. And that makes this morning more valuable than you realize. So don't merely wake up. Be awake to your life. Use the morning. Use the hour. Use the moment. Because time does not scream when it leaves. It simply disappears and takes a piece of your life with it. Rule 4. Choose your one essential task before the world chooses for you. If you wake up without deciding what matters, the world will decide it for you. Your day will be filled before you ever choose its direction. A notification will become important. Someone else's request will become urgent. A meaningless argument will consume an hour. A dozen small tasks will create the illusion of productivity, while the one thing capable of changing your life remains untouched. And at night, you will be exhausted, not because you accomplished what mattered, but because you spent your energy answering everything that demanded it. The Stoics understood that a human life can be destroyed not only by terrible decisions, but by thousands of small distractions that quietly steal attention. Seneca warned about the way people scatter their lives across trivial things, giving pieces of themselves to everyone and everything until there is almost nothing left for what truly matters. Your attention is not an unlimited resource. Every morning you are given a finite amount of mental energy, and whatever receives that energy receives a piece of your life. Imagine a warrior entering a battlefield carrying a sword, but instead of choosing his target, he swings at everything that moves. He attacks shadows. He chases birds. He fights enemies who were never threatening him. By the time the real battle arrives, his arms are exhausted. That is how an unfocused mind lives. It reacts to every movement. Every message becomes an emergency. Every problem becomes equally important. But a disciplined mind does not attack everything. It knows what deserves the sword. This is why your morning needs one clear priority. Not 20 goals. Not an enormous list designed to make you feel productive. One essential task. The thing that, if completed, would make you respect the day even if everything else went wrong. It might be writing the chapter, building the business, studying for the exam, training your body, applying for the opportunity, creating the video, having the difficult conversation. Whatever it is, identify it before the world begins competing for your attention. Marcus Aurelius lived with an extraordinary number of responsibilities, yet Stoicism repeatedly brought him back to the present action. Not the entire empire, not every future crisis, not every opinion surrounding him. The task directly in front of him. That is a powerful discipline in an age where your mind is constantly being pulled toward 10 different futures at once. Think of a magnifying glass under the sun. The sunlight itself is scattered and relatively harmless, but when the rays are gathered into one concentrated point, they become powerful enough to burn through material. Your attention works the same way. Scattered attention creates movement. Concentrated attention creates force. You may not need more motivation. You may need less fragmentation. Look at the people who create extraordinary things. A writer sitting alone for hours does not produce a great book by constantly checking what everyone else is doing. An athlete does not become exceptional by training whenever they feel like it. A scientist does not make a breakthrough by dividing every minute between hundreds of unrelated distractions. Their advantage often comes from something deceptively simple. They can keep their attention in one place long enough for depth to appear. Modern life is designed to destroy that ability. Every platform wants a piece of your attention. Every notification announces, "Look here." Every message suggests, "Answer me now." Every trend whispers, "You are missing something." And if you obey every demand, your own priorities become the quietest voice in your life. That is why deciding your essential task in the morning is more than productivity. It is an act of self-respect. You are telling the world, before I become available to everyone else, I will honor what I am building. You are creating a boundary around your future, and there will be days when you cannot complete everything. That is normal. The Stoic does not measure the quality of a day by whether every event obeyed the plan. The Stoic asks whether they acted according to reason and virtue within the circumstances they were given. Some days will be interrupted, some days will be painful, some days will collapse completely. But if you know what matters most, you can always return to it. Imagine a ship crossing an ocean. Storms can push it off course, waves can slow it down, visibility can disappear. But the ship does not need to control the ocean to reach its destination. It needs a direction. Without direction, even calm water can lead you nowhere. With direction, even rough water can eventually be crossed. Your life is the same. So tomorrow morning, before opening your inbox, before scrolling, before answering everyone else's questions, ask yourself one question. What is the one thing I must move forward today? Write it down, make it specific. Then protect the first meaningful block of your attention for it. Do not wait until you feel ready. Do not wait until everything becomes quiet. Do not wait for perfect motivation. Begin while the world is still asleep if you have to, because the future you want will not be built by everything you could possibly do. It will be built by the few things you decide matter enough to do consistently. And when the day ends, you may discover that you did not need to conquer the entire world. You only needed to refuse to let the world distract you from your direction. Choose what matters before the world chooses for you. Rule 5. Visualize the storm, then walk into the day unafraid. Before you ask the day to be kind to you, prepare your mind for the possibility that it won't be. Most people begin their mornings making silent demands of reality. I hope nobody ruins my mood. I hope everything goes smoothly. I hope people understand me. I hope nothing goes wrong. And the moment reality refuses to cooperate, their peace collapses. The Stoics approached the morning differently. They did not wake up expecting an easy day. They prepared themselves to remain steady when the day became difficult. This is the deeper meaning of premeditatio malorum, the Stoic practice of mentally considering the difficulties that might occur. It was not pessimism, it was preparation. A sailor does not study storms because he wants the ocean to become violent. He studies them because he knows the ocean does not care about his preferences. The purpose of anticipating difficulty is not to make you afraid of life. It is to make you less fragile when life becomes difficult. Imagine walking through a forest carrying a lantern. If you believe the path will always remain clear, the first unexpected obstacle will shock you. But if you know darkness, fallen branches, steep ground and sudden storms are part of the journey, you are less likely to panic when they appear. You keep walking. Preparation changes the emotional meaning of difficulty. What once felt like an unfair interruption becomes something you already expected to encounter. Marcus Aurelius understood this deeply. Before dealing with people, he reminded himself that he might encounter difficult, ignorant, selfish, or ungrateful individuals. Why would he do that? Because he wanted to remove surprise from the equation. If someone behaved badly, he did not need to think, "How could this happen to me?" He had already accepted that human beings sometimes behave badly. The event could still be unpleasant, but it no longer needed to destroy his composure. Think about how much emotional suffering comes from expectations rather than events themselves. You expect someone to respect you, and they don't. You expect a plan to work, and it fails. You expect recognition, and nobody notices. You expect the day to be smooth, and suddenly everything becomes complicated. The pain is real, but part of the shock comes from believing reality violated a contract it never signed. Life never promised you a smooth day. It promised you a day, that is all. And once you understand that, you stop asking reality to obey your preferences. This does not mean expecting disaster around every corner. The Stoic is not someone who wakes up imagining catastrophe and spends the day afraid. The Stoic simply understands that difficulty belongs to life. Loss belongs to life. Rejection belongs to life. Delays belong to life. Misunderstanding belongs to life. Failure belongs to life. And because these things are possible, you can decide in advance how you want to meet them. Ask yourself in the morning, what could test me today? Maybe someone will disrespect you. Maybe someone will criticize your work. Maybe you will receive disappointing news. Maybe your plans will fall apart. Maybe you will feel tired and want to quit. Maybe someone will try to provoke you. Now make the decision before the event happens. If they provoke me, I will not surrender my character. If something goes wrong, I will solve what I can instead of wasting energy complaining. If I am criticized, I will take the useful lesson and leave the unnecessary insult behind. If the day becomes difficult, I will not use difficulty as an excuse to become someone I do not respect. That is mental armor. Not armor that makes you emotionless, armor that prevents emotion from becoming your master. A blacksmith does not wait until the sword breaks before strengthening it. The metal is heated, struck, shaped, and tested before it enters the battlefield. Your mind must be trained the same way. Every morning, you can mentally rehearse the person you intend to be when pressure arrives. This is especially powerful because your brain responds differently when an event feels completely unexpected versus when you have mentally prepared for it. Preparation creates psychological space. Instead of immediately reacting, you recognize the situation. I knew difficult moments would come. This is one of them. That single recognition can create the distance between impulse and choice. And that distance is where freedom lives, because anyone can be calm when everything is going their way. Anyone can be patient when nobody is testing them. Anyone can feel disciplined when motivation is high. Character reveals itself when reality stops cooperating. That is why the morning is the perfect time to rehearse difficulty. You are not trying to predict exactly what will happen. You are strengthening your response to uncertainty itself. Think of a mountain before a storm. The mountain does not chase the clouds away. It does not scream at the sky. It does not demand that the rain stop because it has somewhere to be. It simply remains rooted while the weather moves across it. Become that grounded. Let the day change. Let people change. Let plans change. Let circumstances change. But do not let every external change rewrite your character. Tomorrow morning, take 60 seconds and imagine the possibility of difficulty. Not to frighten yourself, but to remove the illusion that difficulty is abnormal. Then tell yourself, whatever arrives today, I will meet it awake. If the day is beautiful, you will appreciate it. If the day is painful, you will endure it. If the day is chaotic, you will simplify what you can control. If the day tests you, you will remember who you decided to be before the test arrived. Because success is not having mornings where nothing goes wrong. Success is becoming the kind of person who does not fall apart when something does. Prepare for the storm. Then walk into the day without fear. Rule 6. Guard your attention. What you feed will grow. Your attention is the most expensive currency you possess, because every moment you spend is a piece of your life that can never be recovered. Yet every morning, people hand that currency to strangers without thinking. They wake up and scroll through other people's victories, arguments, opinions, fears, and desires. They consume everything placed in front of them, then wonder why their own ambitions feel distant. The problem is not always that they lack discipline. Sometimes they have simply trained their attention to belong everywhere except where their future is being built. Your mind is like a garden. It does not care whether the seed you plant is beautiful or poisonous. If you repeatedly water it, something will grow. Feed your mind comparison every morning, and dissatisfaction grows. Feed it outrage, and anger becomes easier to access. Feed it fear, and your world begins to look more dangerous than it actually is. But feed it knowledge, purpose, discipline, gratitude, and meaningful work, and those patterns begin competing for space inside you. Whatever repeatedly receives your attention eventually begins shaping your perception of reality. The Stoics understood that attention was inseparable from character. Marcus Aurelius repeatedly called himself back from distraction, reminding himself to focus on the task immediately before him and to live according to reason. He knew that a scattered mind becomes vulnerable to everything around it. If every noise can pull you away from yourself, then you are not truly directing your life. You are being directed by whatever happens to be loudest. Imagine standing in a room with 10 people shouting your name from different directions. One wants your time, another wants your money, another wants your opinion, another wants your emotional energy, another wants you to become angry, another wants you to compare yourself with them. If you try to answer every voice simultaneously, you will eventually hear nothing clearly. That is what constant stimulation does to the modern mind. It creates so much noise that your own deepest priorities become difficult to hear. And the danger is subtle because distraction rarely looks destructive at first. 5 minutes of scrolling becomes 20. One video becomes 10. One argument becomes an hour of mentally replaying what you should have said. One comparison becomes a feeling that your entire life is behind. Nothing dramatic happened, yet a piece of your attention disappeared, and with it, a piece of your day. This is why the morning matters so much. The first information you consume becomes the atmosphere in which your mind begins operating. If the first thing you give your brain is chaos, do not be surprised when your thoughts feel chaotic. If you begin with comparison, do not be surprised when your own achievements feel insignificant. If you begin with outrage, do not be surprised when peace becomes difficult to access. Think about a person who drinks polluted water every morning and spends the afternoon wondering why they feel sick. The solution is not to become better at managing the symptoms. The first question is, what are you consuming? Your mental environment works the same way. Before asking why you feel distracted, anxious, or mentally exhausted, examine what you repeatedly allow into your consciousness. This does not mean you should become ignorant of the world. Stoicism is not isolation. You can understand current events, use technology, learn from other people, and remain connected to society. The principle is control. Consume information intentionally instead of allowing information to consume you. A powerful morning practice is to delay unnecessary input until you have created your own internal direction. Give yourself silence before opinions. Give yourself purpose before entertainment. Give yourself thought before reaction. Even 15 or 30 minutes of intentional mental space can change the way the rest of the morning feels. And when you finally pick up your phone, ask a simple question. Did I choose this, or did my impulse choose it for me? That question is uncomfortable because it exposes how often we confuse choice with habit. If your hand reaches for the screen before your mind has made a decision, habit is already speaking. If you open an app without knowing why you opened it, habit is already speaking. If one notification can instantly change your emotional state, habit is already speaking. And if you cannot tolerate a few minutes of silence without stimulation, then silence has become something your mind is no longer trained to handle. But training can change that. Every morning you choose not to react immediately, you strengthen restraint. Every morning you protect your attention, you strengthen focus. Every morning you sit with silence instead of escaping it, you strengthen self-command. The mind becomes powerful through repeated acts of deliberate attention. Think of a laser. Ordinary light spreads in many directions, but a laser becomes powerful because its energy is concentrated. Your mind works the same way. Scattered attention creates mental movement without meaningful progress. Concentrated attention creates force. You do not necessarily need more hours in the day. You need fewer pieces of your mind scattered across things that do not deserve them. This is why some people can work for 2 hours and accomplish what others fail to accomplish in an entire day. Their secret is not always extraordinary intelligence. Often, it is the ability to remain mentally present long enough for depth to emerge. And depth requires protection. You cannot build a meaningful life while constantly interrupting yourself. You cannot hear your conscience through endless noise. You cannot develop mastery while repeatedly training your mind to seek the next distraction. So tomorrow morning, protect the first portion of your attention as if you were protecting something priceless, because you are. Do not give your best mental energy to strangers on a screen. Give it to your future. Give it to your craft. Give it to your body. Give it to your family. Give it to the work that matters. Give it to becoming the person you keep saying you want to become. Because every morning something is growing inside you. The only question is, what are you feeding? Feed distraction, and distraction will become your master. Feed fear, and fear will become your lens. Feed comparison, and nothing will ever feel enough. But feed discipline, clarity, wisdom, and purpose, and one morning you may look at your life and realize that the mind you once struggled to control has finally become the mind that carries you. Rule 7. Speak to yourself like a Stoic. Master the voice within. There is a voice you hear more often than any voice in the world, and if that voice constantly speaks against you, no amount of success outside you will create peace inside you. Every morning, before the world has a chance to criticize you, your own mind may already be doing it. You are behind. You are not disciplined enough. You failed again. Everyone else is doing better. you will never become who you want to be. And because that voice sounds like you mistake it for truth. But a thought can sound convincing and still be wrong. Your mind is constantly interpreting your life. Two people can experience the same setback and walk away with completely different realities. One thinks, "This proves I am a failure." The other thinks, "This exposed something I need to improve." The event was identical. The meaning was different, and meaning determines emotional direction. Stoicism was never simply about controlling external circumstances. It was about learning to examine the judgments you make about those circumstances. Epictetus understood this distinction deeply. An event arrives, and then the mind immediately gives it a story. Someone criticizes you, and your mind says, "They think I'm worthless." Someone rejects you, and your mind says, "Nobody will ever choose me." You make a mistake, and your mind says, "I always ruin everything." But notice what happened. The event was small, and the interpretation became enormous. The mind took one moment and built an identity around it. This is why the way you speak to yourself every morning matters. You are not trying to become your own cheerleader who blindly tells you everything is amazing. You are becoming your own philosopher, someone willing to question the first interpretation that appears. When your mind says, "I can't handle today," ask, "What evidence do I have?" When it says, "Everything is going wrong," ask, "Everything or one thing?" When it says, "I am not enough," ask, "Is that a fact or is that pain speaking?" That small pause is powerful, because the first thought is often automatic. The second thought can be deliberate, and that second thought is where your freedom begins. Imagine a courtroom where the prosecutor is allowed to speak, but the defense is never allowed to answer. Every mistake becomes evidence. Every weakness becomes proof. Every failure becomes a permanent sentence. That is how many people treat themselves. They allow their inner critic to prosecute them every morning, but they never question its evidence. A Stoic mind does not accept every thought as a verdict. It examines the case. Marcus Aurelius repeatedly reminded himself to return to reason. He knew that the mind can create unnecessary suffering by exaggerating events, predicting futures that have not happened, and assigning moral meaning to things that are simply circumstances. If someone insults you, the insult itself does not automatically determine your worth. If you fail, failure does not automatically define your identity. You still get to decide what the event means and what you will do next. This is where powerful self-talk becomes practical. Instead of waking up and saying, "I have so much to deal with," say, "I will deal with one thing at a time." Instead of, "I cannot fail today," say, "I will focus on doing the work well." Instead of, "What if everything goes wrong?" say, "If something goes wrong, I will respond when it arrives." Instead of, "I need everyone to respect me," say, "I need to respect my own character." Notice the difference. The first versions create fear because they demand certainty. The second versions create strength because they return you to control. A ship crossing a violent ocean cannot control the waves, but the captain can control the wheel. Your internal dialogue is the wheel. Every morning, life will present conditions you cannot command. Your responsibility is to keep your hands on what remains yours: your judgment, your choices, your effort, and your character. And never underestimate the power of identity-based language. If you repeatedly tell yourself, "I am lazy," you begin defending that identity through behavior. If you tell yourself, "I am someone who is learning discipline," you create room for action. The goal is not to lie about your weaknesses. The goal is to describe yourself in a way that leaves space for growth. A person who says, "I failed," is describing an event. A person who says, "I am a failure," is creating a prison. One can change, the other feels permanent. Be careful with the words you use to build the walls of your identity. Your mind listens, it remembers repetition, and eventually it begins acting according to the story you have told it often enough. So tomorrow morning, before the world speaks to you, speak to yourself deliberately. Tell yourself the truth, but make it useful. Tell yourself that the day may be difficult, but you can meet difficulty. Tell yourself that you may fail, but failure is not your identity. Tell yourself that you cannot control everything, but you can control your response. Tell yourself that you do not need to be perfect to begin. Tell yourself that you have one responsibility today, to act according to the person you want to become. Because your inner voice is not background noise. It is the architect of your mental world. And if you spend every morning teaching your mind fear, weakness, and helplessness, don't be surprised when your life begins reflecting those lessons. But if you teach it discipline, perspective, courage, patience, and reason, then slowly the voice inside you changes. And when that happens, something extraordinary follows. The world may still speak loudly, but you no longer need its voice to tell you who you are. Tomorrow morning you will wake up with the same mind you have today, unless you deliberately teach it to become different. The world will still be waiting outside your door. Notifications will still appear. Problems will still exist. People will still disappoint you. Some mornings will feel powerful and others will feel heavy. But now you understand something most people never consciously realize. You cannot always control what enters your day, but you can control what you train your mind to become before the day begins. You learn to win the first battle by protecting your mind from immediate distraction. You learn to control your first thought instead of allowing negativity to choose your direction. You learn to remember that your time is limited, to choose your one essential task before the world chooses for you, to prepare yourself for difficulty instead of being shocked by it, to guard what enters your attention, to master the voice within, and finally to do one difficult thing before comfort has a chance to negotiate. These are not simply morning habits. They are votes for the person you are becoming. Every morning you choose distraction. You strengthen distraction. Every morning you choose discipline. You strengthen discipline. Every morning you surrender your attention. You become easier to control. Every morning you take it back. You become a little harder to shake. And every time you choose discomfort over unnecessary comfort, you prove to yourself that your feelings do not have to command your actions. Think about a stone beneath a river. One drop of water cannot change it. But the river does not need one powerful moment. It needs consistency, drop after drop, day after day, year after year. Eventually, the stone carries the evidence of every small movement. Your mind is being shaped the same way. You do not need one extraordinary morning to transform your life. You need ordinary mornings practiced with extraordinary intention. So tomorrow, don't try to conquer your entire life before breakfast. Win the first hour. Protect your attention. Control your first thought. Remember that your time is limited. Choose what matters. Prepare for the storm. Guard what enters your mind. Speak to yourself with reason. And do one difficult thing before comfort convinces you to postpone it. Then do it again the next morning. And again. Because one day you will look back and realize that the life you wanted was not created in one dramatic moment. It was built quietly, morning after morning, while nobody was watching. The discipline you practiced when nobody saw it became the strength everyone eventually noticed. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that when you rise in the morning, you have been given another opportunity to fulfill your role as a human being. That idea carries a powerful truth. The morning is not something to survive. It is something to use. You have another day, another chance to think differently, another chance to act differently, another chance to become slightly stronger than yesterday. So before you reach for the phone tomorrow, reach for yourself. Before the world gives you its priorities, remember your own. Before fear tells you what could go wrong, decide how you will respond if it does. Before distraction steals your attention, decide where it belongs. Before comfort asks you to wait, remember what you are building. And before the day begins, make one decision. I will not allow the world to program my mind for me. Because success does not belong only to the person with the greatest opportunity. It belongs to the person who can repeatedly train their mind to recognize opportunity, endure difficulty, control distraction, choose discipline over comfort, and act when others are still negotiating with themselves. Rewire your mind every morning, not because every morning will be perfect, but because every morning is another chance to become the person capable of creating the life you want. And eventually, the world outside you will begin to change, not because the world suddenly became easier, but because the mind meeting it became stronger.